Hey, y'all, you're listening to the Legacy, Lyrics, and Life podcast. I'm your host, Shawna Wells, your legacy architect. Welcome. This is the podcast where we'll uncover what legacy really means and the impact we can all have when we are present. Let's get started. Hey, Jamari.
Hey, Shawna.
We are so excited to have you to talk a little bit about the incredible work that you do alongside caregivers and parents and students and families. So Jamari, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, who your people are.
I'm Jamari Michael White. I am the founder of Soul Steward, and I am first and foremost the seer and the spiritual teacher. My mission here is to help people connect with the sacred, help people connect with the wisdom of the soul. And I've been doing that for many lifetimes. And this particular one, I'm specifically helping parents really support and connect with the souls of their children. We're living in a really, really critical and transformative moment right now, where the souls coming into our earth are unlike any we've ever experienced before. And so I'm here to help with their transition, with their growth, with the ways they're transforming our world. And I'm super excited. I come here with, so much wisdom. I have so much immense gratitude from my ancestors, from spirit. I come from a Christian tradition. So from that path, from many, 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 many teachers who have supported me on this journey. I come from a lot of people, a lot of love, a lot of grace. And I'm just super happy to be here with you in this moment in time. It's a precious one.
When you think about every moment being a millennia in the making, it's just a profoundly spiritual experience to just live in this space with you. So thank you. So I am just infatuated with your story and what you've chosen to do. So I imagine that there were plenty of people that lifted you up, and there were plenty of people that were like, what?
Yeah, I was one of those people at one point who was like, what?
So tell us, what's a day like for you as you're living this beautiful truth that you have found?
So typically, I don't people before 10 a.m. So typically I'm waking up, and really it's about just allowing myself to be in the space of hearing my own voice and hearing God's voice. So I really just take that time where I tune with myself, and sometimes I meditate, sometimes I pray, sometimes I'm just making breakfast. And then usually I will start my day either with a session with a parent. And so usually I'm doing what I call child soul print readings. And this is where I sit down and I connect with a child's soul to bring forward insights about who they are, about their unique energy, about their unique mission here, and why they've chosen their parent to steward them. Because us as all souls, we choose who will steward us in this life. And it's an intentional choice. It's not a mistake. It's not happenstance. It's, I saw you, I picked you for whatever reason. So I provide that information to parents so that they can know this is what your child is needing from you on a soul level. So usually my day will consist of maybe one session, child soul print session with a parent. I also help to mentor and teach a lot of students who are spiritual healers, spiritual coaches. So I might then have a session with one of my mentees. I am just finishing and about to launch an ebook. So these days, a lot of my day has been writing, which has been really beautiful. And then other parts of my day also just look like connecting with people. A number of years ago, I intentionally said that I want to live a life where I'm always available to those who need me most. And if I'm not able to be available, I need to shift something, means I'm too busy or etc. So, usually I'll get a text, somebody, hey, Jamari, you got some time to chat, or hey, and I leave room in my schedule to do that. I always end my day with some type of physical activity, whether it's walking or working with my trainer, because it just helps me to process and release everything I've dealt with or went throughout the day. So yeah, that's about a typical day for me.
What I love about this is that you've built your whole day around the legacy that you're working to leave that you told us about, right? It's like you said, I don't people before 10, which I like, that is a beautiful line, right? Like I don't people before 10. And then I'm really intrigued by this idea that you really connect with humans doing the most human work that we do, which is to parent and nurture children, right? Whether you're a parent or you're a caregiver, like to nurture children is the ultimate gift. And this idea that like I leave space in my schedule to connect with others because I've made that commitment to the universe, to myself, to the world to do that. And I think we downplay that spaciousness as I know that people from my past would call that laziness, right? Like people from my past would call that a lack of productivity. So a bold choice to be at rest. What got you there?
Initially, I was a social worker and a mental health therapist, actually. And I was doing that work for a couple years, but was really having a hard time with it. I was having a hard time with certain ideas in Western psychology. I was having a hard time dealing with being licensed with the state, which made me an agent of the state. And I was working mostly with Black families, and I didn't like that. I was having a hard time with the medical industrial complex and all the ways that essentially we have to pathologize ourselves to get help. And I was just really struggling. It felt really misaligned. But at the time, I actually wasn't conscious enough, as much as I am now, to be aware of what was off. I just felt off. I didn't feel good. And I had all the things people are saying you're supposed to have a great career. I was married at the time. We had our house. We had the 401k. We went on vacation, right? I had all the things that are supposed to be beautiful and make life amazing and successful. And I was miserable. And I was so miserable, I started to have suicidal thoughts. And now, again, I'm a social worker, I'm a therapist myself. So I know what to do, right? I'm seeing the right people and doing the right things. Nothing was helping. And I just kept getting more and more depressed and more miserable until one day I finally made peace with making the decision to take my own life. And I remember the day, it was Palm Sunday. And I'd stayed up all night writing letters and notes to everybody I loved. And my wife at the time, that morning, she saw me. She kind of looked at me like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And long story short, I ended up in the middle of my kitchen floor bawling. I mean, just bawling, screaming. And as I'm laying on the kitchen floor, which to me felt like a couple minutes, but my partner actually at the time had said I'd been there on the floor for quite a long time. But in the middle of that, I heard God say to me, "You know who you are. You know who you are. Get up." And I got up and I went to the altar at the time in our home. And I just started to pray and sing and ask God to heal me. And it was like instantaneous clarity came over me, just like this wave. It almost shocked me. I kind of sat back because I wasn't crying anymore. I wasn't in distress. And I was just kind of like, what just happened? And from that day forward, I made a very clear decision that I wanted the life that God had for me. Like I had tried it my way and it sucked. And so I was like, you know what, God, this is clearly not the life I'm supposed to live, because if I keep living this way, I'm going to end up dead. And so what's the life that you have for me, for my soul? And I just started to pursue that. And there's this song by Lauryn Hill, which is why I say this podcast is so timely. There's a song by Lauryn Hill called Get Out, where there's a line that says, "If everything must go, then go." And I started to say that line as a prayer, like literally all day, every day. I had an hour and a half commute to work. All day, every day, that whole commute, I would say, if everything must go, then go. And things started to go, right? Including my job, including my marriage. And I spent a year in prayer and meditation. And one of the things that God instructed me to do at that time was to just be available to people. And so some days a friend would call, we would talk for hours, 4, 5, 6 hours the whole day. That's all I would do. I wasn't working. Like, that's all I would do. And that practice has carried over. What was clear, God was showing me like what he made me for in that time. Being useless to everybody else, being useless to this career, being even useless in my marriage, made space for God to reveal to me, this is what I actually made you for. So I continue to hold that space where I get to just be available to those who I love and those who God brings into my space and into my life to just be present for.
Thank you for sharing that. You took us to that day, that moment. And I'm a believer, like, universe will tell you over and over again and hit you harder every time. I wonder, like, when you look back, are you like, I knew I was out of misalignment. I just ignored it.
When I look back, I would say no. I look back now and I can see the way God was pointing me to this moment and to this work. I can see that. It's like all up and through. Now it's like blatantly obvious. It's like, where were you, Jamari? Like, what were you paying attention to? Right. But that I was misaligned, no. And I think this is important. I really didn't have the same level of consciousness and self awareness until now. And I think that's important because sometimes we make it seem like we just woke up like this, right? Like people who have a certain level of awareness or certain gifts or skills, like, oh, I just woke up like this. It's like, nah, like I was really unaware and really stupid. Like a lot of the first, quarter of my life, I just didn't know. And I had to invite in a different relationship with spirit, with ancestors, with God, to like heal trauma and heal false beliefs and perspectives in order to raise my sense of self-awareness. So I didn't know I was I felt the misalignment. I felt numb. I felt depressed. But I couldn't see what in my life was creating that. And I think a lot of people experience that. And so they don't know what to do. They don't even know that they have a problem that needs to be addressed. They don't know their soul is hurting. And I think God made my story that way because I think more people can relate to that than someone who had this clear journey from one place to another.
Well, and what occurs to me as you share is like you said, I had all the things. I grew up in a community that was like, go get your master's. That'll make you happy. When are you going to get your doctorate? As soon as the day I finished my master's, I was like, dang, y'all, like, let me breathe, right? As soon as you get married, are you having kids? How many, right? As soon as you have your first kid, when are you having your second? And so there's like this inertia that's pushing you towards the life you think you're supposed to leave. And meanwhile, our souls could be sick. We could be ignoring some real universal truths that are meant for us to design a different life. So you talked about receiving this message. What enabled your receipt of that?
Desperation and devastation. Sometimes my mentees will ask me, Jamari, how are you who you are? Like, how is it possible that you receive and you see so much? How is it possible you took a whole year off, no job, collecting debt? How is it possible you made all these choices that I'm terrified to make? And it was life or death for me. I was very aware that if I kept living life the way I was living, I would take myself out. I could not figure out any other way. And so I was so desperate for something else. And I think sometimes our ways of coping, of managing with the distress that we're feeling actually get in the way of us receiving what is most for us because it allows us to just continue to tolerate what is actually painful and we shouldn't be tolerating. And so, the whole sometimes you got to hit rock bottom. Like, I believe that in many ways, like all the things that keep us at this weird homeostasis with pain, pain is trying to tell us something, it's trying to communicate something. Somebody stabs you. Like, you don't want somebody to give you some pain medication that has you just ignoring the fact that you have a stab wound. Like, that's insanity, right? And so, but many of us do that on a soul level, on a mental level. Like we just take the things that will allow us to cope and deal without actually sitting with, okay, but what is really causing me this pain? And what do I actually really need for it to go away completely? And I would say that's the other thing that allowed me to receive is I really wanted to believe in God's capacity to end my suffering. Like I had tried everything else. I had tried mental health. I had tried therapy. I had tried all those things and they weren't working. But I grew up in the Black Baptist church where the constant message I was receiving was God's ability to end all of my suffering. And I was like, you know what? I haven't tried. I haven't tried that. And maybe it's BS, but how do I know unless I put my faith in it and see? And so I would say that that allowed me to receive as well, just the willingness to be like, my way's not working. Let's try this other way, God. That also came out of the desperation and life or death situation that I was in.
It's incredible that you had the will to get very still with yourself, like the will to be still and to hear what was coming and then how to respond. How did you know when you got the message? Like, how did you know when you were like, this is it? Like, this is actually part of my legacy and I got to go after it?
So, with that initial message, when God told me, you know who you are, I didn't know. I had no clue. That was all I got for a while, was that message. But I trusted it and I stuck with it. And then, like I said, I kept saying that prayer, if everything must go, then go, that lyric over and over again. And as things started to go, there was more space and there was more room and certain events would happen. There started to be these like really strange synchronicities of conversations I would have with people or, something that would show up on my doorstep that was just another like little, like you're on the right track, even though we have no clue where we're even going. And so when I finally was in the space where I took the year off, it was really a journey of listening every single day for the message that was there. I mean, literally every day, every moment. That's why I would meditate. That's what I would pray. And then God would be like, okay, now I want you to start collaging. I'm like, okay, sure. And I started collaging. And then God would be like, okay, now I want you to go talk to this person and work with this healer. Sure. I mean, literally that was my life for like a year. In that time, I should say, God then started to reveal to me the gifts and skills that I had, the abilities that I had to see the spiritual realms, to talk with ancestors, to heal and support other people in a spiritual way, to support people's souls. But even still, I didn't really know where anything was going. I mean, all of this was new. I was not one of those people who was like, I talked to dead people when I was 5. I was not that person. So as God is revealing these things to me, I'm very aware, okay, I don't know nothing about this. And so I'm continuing to look to God to say, okay, what do you want me to do with this? How does this work? What do I do with this gift? Who is this gift meant to? I mean, I kept going back to God to lead and guide my journey every single step of the way. And then that's when I eventually started my first spiritual healing business, which was called Black Ancestral Healing. And it started to take a little bit more form. But even still, how I got to Soul Steward, my practice now, was a journey. It's been a process of not seeing the full picture, but constantly turning back to God and the ancestors and spirit and trusting every step that I would take.
This conversation with our ancestors is one I think over time has been pushed away societally, right? And I joke with our team all the time. I'm like, listen, I called the ancestors to get the answer to this question. And it's a powerful tool, whether, like you said, whether it's BS or not. I know somebody's talking to me. Like I know something, whether it's my voice or theirs, it's within us, right? There's things that are deeply inside of us that are older than us. I believe that with my whole heart. And still, I doubt. Do you ever doubt?
No one's ever asked me that question before, interestingly enough. I doubt I've heard correctly. I don't understand sometimes. So sometimes I've heard correctly, I do the thing, and I still, again, I'm like, but what we doing? Like, like I was talking to a friend similarly about something. I was like, I totally trust everything that's happening, and I have no idea what's happening. So I have moments like that. And then I think just like anyone in the world, I have experiences just in life related to my childhood stuff or abandonment that I always work to heal and address in small and pieces of just, feeling alone. I have a really deep relationship with ancestors, really deep relationship with spirit, but they're not embodied beings. And so there can be moments of loneliness that I feel where I'm like, well, why can't y'all be in a body? Like, I need somebody in a body, like, to be talking to me. I do a practice called ancestral lineage healing, and it's where I support people who want to have a deeper connection with their ancestors, as well as want to support healing unwellness and burdening and intergenerational trauma on their line. And in that practice, one of the first things people often say is, well, how do I know I'm not making all of this up? And for me, I say, well, let's see what happens in your life. Like, there's no better evidence than the truth of your experience. Like, if you're making all of this up, then nothing will change in your life. Nothing will change about how you feel about it. Nothing will change in your relationships with your family. Like, nothing will be any different. But if this is legit, it will improve your own sense of well being. It will shift your own sense of purpose in life. It will shift your sense of presence in your life. It will shift the relationship dynamics and the well being of people in your family. And that's what my clients experience is those shifts. And so they wind up saying, I don't know if it's made up or not, but I'm gonna keep doing it. Like when people talk about placebo effect, one, I think it's always interesting because I'm like, no one's ever really interested in why placebo effect works for some people and not for others. I find that fascinating. But two, no one ever seems interested in then like, well, if a sugar pill can work, let's figure out how to make the sugar pill work for everybody. Like, why take a chemical if we don't have to? So for me, I've witnessed enough of the impact of my relationships with God and the ancestors in my life to where I don't experience, I would say, the same kind of doubt that maybe someone who hasn't had a deep enough practice would experience. And I will sometimes tell people, like, you would believe what I believe if you lived the life that I live.
What is a message that you've gotten from the ancestors that you're like, okay, I don't get it, but okay. I'm asking for a friend. No.
One of the most recent ones, and I still don't totally get it, but I was talking with a friend to help me get it more. One of the most recent ones, my ancestors told me to buy purple glasses. Yeah, buy purple. I bought them. The viewers can't see, but you can see. I bought them. All right. And I do wear glasses, but typically I'm a like brown, black kind of person. I don't really get too funky with my glasses. And so when they were like, buy purple glasses, I was like, I don't wear purple glasses though. Like, that's not me. And the only thing that he said was, I need you to let go of who you think you are right now. So I bought the purple glasses and I'm going to wear the purple glasses. I have a little bit more understanding of why the purple glasses, but I still really don't get it. But I'm trusting it. I'm trusting the role that it's going to play in this next journey of my life. I know I'm at a really big transition right now. And I know that whenever you transition, who you need to be in that new place is going to be different than who you are right now. So maybe I'll come back on the podcast when it's like super clear what the glasses are for and be like, y'all never would have guessed this.
This is what happened. I'm like, Lauryn Hill's going to see you in those purple glasses, right, and y'all are going to get to talking and you're going to go on tour.
Listen, don't laugh, Shawna. Listen. That's the way it happens though in my life. Legit. So, hey, Lauren, like, right. I got the purple glasses. I got them.
It's incredible what you're sharing, because it's so simple sometimes, the messages that we are meant to follow on the path to our legacy, or the things we're meant to pay attention to, or what our body does, right? And sometimes we're like waiting for the big moment, right? The big unveil. And it can be so simple sometimes. It's like, no, left instead of right, right? Or like purple glasses instead of the brown ones. And what I hear you saying is, like, sometimes it's those things that take us on a new path of possibility towards our legacies.
Often it
Yeah.
is. One of the biggest shifts I made in consciousness, this was maybe a year ago. I had always sort of noticed these kind of patterns in my life. Like, I noticed something seemingly random, like, I don't know, a horse on a flyer. And then maybe the next day, the horse in a TV show would jump out at me. And then maybe the next day, I'd hear a song called Horse Lovers or something like that. And then I'd end up having some experience or meeting someone important who had a horse t-shirt on, right? Like, I always noticed little patterns like that throughout my experience. And one day I decided I was going to actually start to track. And so I literally had a journal. I called it my pattern journal. And anytime something stood out to me, I would write it down. Even if it hadn't happened again, if it just stood out to me in whatever mode, I'd write it down. And I started to end up tracking these patterns. And again, I wouldn't know why the pattern was there. I didn't try to figure out what spirit trying to tell me. I just would track them. And eventually it would be revealed. I remember one distinct time I kept waking up and hearing bells, and there ain't no bells in my house, but I kept waking up and hearing bells for like 2 or 3 weeks. And then at the end of that 2 or 3 weeks, I ended up getting this client whose last name was Bell. And so when I did that, and I was able to see on paper the alchemy that spirit is engaging in, that God is engaging in, I was like, oh shit, like, this is deep. And it was small things, and it's always small things. God can use anything. Your soul can use anything, and is often using everything in your life. Somebody right now, I swear to you, somebody right now got a spoon that been sitting on their kitchen floor underneath the stove for months that God is using. Like, right now. And I don't know, maybe you're supposed to work with me. Maybe you need to hit up Shawna. But whoever you are, and you probably noticed it this morning while you was eating your oatmeal, and you looked at it, you was like, why don't I just pick up that spoon? I've been looking at that spoon under the stove forever, and I won't just pick it up. What is wrong with me? This is why you didn't pick it up. Right here, right now, is why you didn't pick it up. And so God is using everything. The soul is using everything in our lives to communicate with us. It's just a matter of, are we paying attention to what gets our attention? That's what some people think you have to put forth a lot of effort to see it. You don't. All you've got to do is pay attention to what is already getting your attention. I forget the statistics, but there's something like, I don't know, we see like 5 billion pieces of information or whatever in our lifetimes or something like that, but we only store a certain percentage of it, right? So we only have a capacity to take in so much, which means we block out everything else. All of that is divine making. We're literally designed to block out specific things at specific moments. So what gets your attention is of sacred value. So paying attention to that, paying attention to those patterns, again, without trying to create a story, allows you to be in deeper relationship with all these small, big, tiny ways that spirit is always speaking and affirming for us and guiding for us what's happening. My current partner, her name is Nicola. Shout out to Nicola. And before I met her, I was talking to a friend, and my friend knew me, I think maybe 6 or 7 years. So knew me when I was married. and was saying something about my ex-wife and called her Nicole. Now, my ex-wife's name is not Nicole. It's nowhere close to Nicole, not even close. And as soon as she said it, she said, "Why did I say that? I know that's not her name." And I said, "I don't know why you said it, but I wrote it down in my pattern journal." Right? Right? And then not too long after that, I meet my current partner, Nicola. So there's always evidence present. There's always preparation present. And lots of time, it's small. It's the things we would never suspect.
Everybody just ran out and got a pattern journal, by the way. Do you have this is something you got to create, right? Because this, like, I'm going to be looking for Jamari's pattern journal. You heard it here first. What I hear you saying is like, pay attention, to sometimes to wake up and pay attention is the thing that you've been waiting for. Dang, Jamari, you've been preaching. So I want to play back to you some of the things, some of the divine lessons that I think you've shared with me. And I'm sure there are going to be a million more as people listen to your words and as you provoke thought. And as reciprocity, here's what I heard you say today that I'm going to carry with me. One of them is the will to be still. The others is to listen. Like, you just listen and you'd be surprised what you hear. I'm remembering the pattern journal and to follow. And as leaders, sometimes like I'm conditioned to lead, and following is profoundly scary. You said you know who you are. And dang, we're told all day we don't know, right? Even when people are trying to help, go get self-care, go read this book, you know who you are. And there's something really simple about that is elegant and profound. And you said what gets your attention is of sacred value. And so thank you for those pieces of wisdom.
Thank you for reflecting them back, Shawna. I just love your presence. Let me say, I need the people to know. I literally am just meeting Shawna today. Today. But
It's
you
true.
are so dope, and your energy is so powerful, and your wisdom is palpable. Even though you've been interviewing me, right? Like the wisdom in your brain is so energetically palpable in here and transformational.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so blessed to be here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, you shared with us one lyric. Is there another lyric that comes to mind that you're like, this one about my legacy is the one that I want the people to hear?
I know that this life in particular and my work with Soul Stewards is a commission, probably one of my greatest commissions as a spirit being. And it has taken so much to get here. So much. Like, I think we shared a drop of it here on this podcast. There's so many stories within the stories, within the stories, within the stories. But I was on Instagram and there was an artist, I'm forgetting their name right now, but there is an artist who, it's not even a song I think they had out. It was just like them kind of riffing. But in it, they said, "Use me until there's nothing left to take." And it was a sort of worship song. And that really lands for me. I don't want to leave here feeling like I took all my gifts, all my wisdom, all my knowledge with me. I want to leave here feeling like I gave it all and I left it all, and other people can use it all. Some folks feel a lot of ownership over their legacy. I don't feel like my legacy is for me. Like, my legacy is for who comes next. It's what they'll do with it. And I hope they make it better. I hope they transmute it. I hope, all of those things. And so I just want to leave everything here. And that lyric really sums it up. I'm a willing vessel for that. And I think for some folks, why they struggle or can struggle in their leadership is it's hard sometimes to embody that level of surrender and release, and to say, I am doing this work, I am showing up in this position, or I am leading this thing, but it's not about me, actually. And the more I can be generous That's what I feel like my real legacy is generosity. The more I can be generous with my heart and my work, the greater my legacy will be.
Where can we find you, Jamari?
You can find me at www.soulstewards.org. You can also find me on Instagram, on the gram, at Soul Stewards as well. You know, you can find me in the ethos, like drop in, say what's up. You know, and if you want to connect, maybe you can find me in your city. I love working with folks, doing awesome things.
Thank you for spending time, for dropping knowledge bombs and wisdom, and for feeding our souls. Thanks for today.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for feeding me. I needed this conversation myself. So thank you.
Thank you for listening to Legacy, Lyrics, and Life. We hope you'll join us on the next episode as we continue to expand and explore life through legacy. If you know someone else who would enjoy this show, be sure to share. Always a pleasure. Until next time.